Welcome to my thoughts on Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord, Season 1, Episode 1, Chapter 1, The Dark Revenge. The episode is for ages 12 and up, so this video B, there will be spoilers for this episode and hypothetically everything Star Wars leading up to it. And and this was an episode that I absolutely loved. I am aware that there is already a second episode out. I will probably get to it soon, but it will not be this day. And yeah, I think I will start with just, it's a Star Wars. I mean, it's fairly rare, in my personal opinion, for these to be, less than at least good, often great, including the Disney ones. And yeah, at least so far they are living up to, if you're going to bring Maul back now, it is kind of, you got to really deliver, otherwise it's going to feel incredibly underwhelming after, you know, Phantom Menace, The Clone Wars. I mean, even he wasn't in a huge amount of Rebels, but still. And I guess Solo, it wasn't terrible about Solo. I'm not one of the people who really hate that movie or anything. That's, anyway, I don't necessarily think it was the most well-judged idea to have Maul in there because it confused a lot of people who are not familiar with the animated stuff. So they were like, wait, is this set before Phantom Menace then? Now, I want to briefly talk about, so the animation style, it is at this point not incredibly surprising that they're still using, I mean, in this case, it's at least slightly modified, but, the Clone Wars animation style, it's less stylized. I especially noticed faces look, I mean, I can never remember if it's Twi'lek or Twi'lek, but, the young woman there is, I mean, there are times where her face looks practically photorealistic when the Clone Wars tended to have, slightly more, stylized faces a lot of the time. Now, I love the choice to use washed out colors for a couple of parts. The background of I think the first time we saw it was during the heist. Some of the background stuff had that kind of effect, and I also love the way that the lightsaber is done. There's a little bit of washing out, and it feels like there's this kind of crackling thing going on to it. It feels like it's going to explode any moment. It's somewhat reminiscent of the Kylo Ren saber, but it works. And with both of these characters, it represents, they are barely containing their rage. And yeah, voice of Maul, as always, just amazing. I wonder how big a part of it, like 80% maybe of the reason that this show was even made was bringing him back. And yeah, it's one of those cases where, this is a character we already know is going to die. I'm not talking about Phantom Menace, I'm talking about Rebels. So we know that he's either not going to die on the show at all, or it's going to be another not permanent death for the character. And, that means that that's one less source of tension, But so far, I'm really digging what they're doing, and it feels accurate to the character. He is petty. He doesn't really let things go, and we're already seeing, he might be pushing a little too far. We don't know yet exactly what the consequences, what the fallout is going to be. But yeah, attacking a police station, that's going to draw attention. And let's see. Yeah, and some people have seen him and live to, yeah. Let's see. I think that is it for the preamble. So, this show hooks me immediately with one of my soft spots of so there's several things going on here. We're opening in media res. We're partway through a heist, and they're doing it that way where we quickly deduce what the plan is, but only as it's already unfolding. So there's no time during it where we're just like, oh, and this is this part. I mean, they already told us they were going to do that. Why are they just letting it play out normally? And it's also, we could clearly tell that this was carefully thought out, so we skip the parts where people are just standing around talking and figuring out what to do, which I appreciate can be made interesting. Lots of heist movies have done, heist stories in general have done it. That's also, love more heists in Star Wars. That was perhaps my favorite thing in Solo. The entire train robbery, and of course also have some of that stuff in Andor, but Andor was a show where I loved pretty much everything, so saying that I love the heists is almost redundant. I think but yeah, and because of that, we get a really epic introduction to Maul instead of just seeing him stand around and talking, which must have happened. Clearly he's in charge. And I really appreciated that before we see the actual Maul, we see, these other, there's like two of the goons that bear a striking resemblance to him. I guess following Arkham City rules. I appreciate that it happens elsewhere as well. But yeah, and then, when we see him and he's got the laser sword, as the cop calls it, yeah. Oh, absolutely awesome. And yeah, another thing that I've loved about the heist, and is again, it's a trope, but it works. The heist does start to at least slightly go wrong, but they have, backup plans. There's a bit of a Joker thing going on here, honestly, and I'm not just referring to the fact that they, take out some flying reinforcements with wires between buildings. And let's see. I think that pretty much covers that scene. Yeah, I'm enjoying the spy droid. I feel like they're doing a good job striking balance between, Star Wars droid cuteness and, this kind of gritty, grimy, dark tone that the show is going for. If you look at the words the droid is saying, these are things that, if not for the voice and the rest of the tone, would have us laughing. And that's not a criticism. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers the opening bit. So yeah, we have the, we meet the cops, and Lawson is awesome. And we again get, it's essentially Star Wars propaganda, and I'm here for it. Just talking about okay, could it have been this person? No, and here's why. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, of course, Demas does think that this was Vario, and yeah, it's really clever, this thing of delivering the head, which is repeating, Demas will make you pay. If only this droid had made sure to name the attacker instead of his boss there at the end, maybe it would have gone different. And yeah, the thing about, Demas, you're looking grandiose as ever. Well, Vario, at least I fill the suit, and we see not terribly long after, Vario is very small physically and uses this robot suit to, get more respect and regard. and also sometimes as a decoy. And that was a great, never shoot a man in the back, Demas, which, is also just like, it's one of those rules of like honor, which of course, people of the underworld don't necessarily have an awful lot of, but it's also, yeah, if he had not tried to shoot someone in the back, I mean, he fired, but there wasn't someone there. If he had waited, he would have realized, oh, that's not actually Vario, been more ready, and maybe been able to take out Vario. And let's see, yeah, they did a good job. They could have did job on, the rage that he's struggling to contain, Demas. And I like the part where he actually does slightly use it to his advantage, because he keeps threatening to and hitting things, breaking things and such, but when he picks up the table, that does actually temporarily provide some cover. I guess it goes without saying by now, yeah, the action choreography is amazing. And this is also one of the ones, it's fairly rare for Star Wars to not deliver on that. This is one of the ones where, I have noticed some of the recent ones have struggled with the following, but this one, I cared each time. I was emotionally invested, not merely looking at something cool. That brings us to the, let's see. Right, we also have the, so yeah, the guy insists they beg, and she tries to steal and gets caught. I'm interested to see what happens with her and her daredevil-like hearing. I'm verily, really impressed that she was able to hear Maul's whispering voice from so far away through a locked metal door. And I think that does pretty much. I feel like there's at least one more thing that I wanted to say before closing out this video. Let's see. So the yeah, I like the Vario telling some about Maul, and yeah, the way that she continues to resist the cops and does end up in a cell when it sounds like maybe that didn't have to be the case. But yeah, she appreciates how unfair it is to judge someone starving for stealing food. And let's see. Yeah, and it's also this thing of, it's a generational thing. He's older, she's younger, so he is more set in his ways and more used to, well, this is just how it is. And she refuses to let that, yeah. And I'm not criticizing either generation there. I guess that pretty much, I guess I'll just very briefly note, so I recommend the Tabernacle video, How Doom is Pro MAGA Donald Trump. It's very interesting. And yeah, I guess that pretty much covers. I feel like there's at least one more thing. Yeah, I like the so I mean, when Spybot locks the door and tried to kill us, I mean, tried to keep apart the cops. It goes I mean, we all agree, Jurassic Park reference, right? And Nedry, I think, is the character's name in that. And yeah, it was clever. It makes, Spy Droid gives Two Boots an electric shock there, and yet Two Boots still manages to escape. And let's see, I think that might pretty much covered. Let's see. I feel like there's at least one more thing that I really wanted to make sure to say about this episode. The Gatling gun is, of course, badass. And let's see. Yeah, looking forward to seeing, so Vario is going to help Maul get to the Pikes. And he's basically saying, well, as long as you're useful, we'll keep you alive. And I feel like there's at least... I will say, I was actually thinking that I wasn't expecting it to be the cut off head of a horse. I mean, droid, bank droid. I thought it was going to be a bomb to take out both of these, leaders. But and they said that it was unexpected that Vario survived. And nicely done on, they don't manage to catch him. They have to make a tactical retreat and then attack the police station. So even here, episode 1 of 10, Maul is already, taking a lot of risks, and they don't always completely work out. So, yeah, I can imagine, I don't know any spoilers, but if I feel like theorizing. I think by the end of this season, he may have gotten, you know, yeah, certain things might have gone wrong because he is so determined on revenge. I guess that pretty much covers everything. Okay, I gotta, if you haven't already, make sure you watch the, now on YouTube. For a while it was mostly Nebula. I don't know if it's not the first time she's posted to YouTube since Nebula, but anyway, Lindsay Ellis put out a video talking about, did Disney steal Aladdin? And it was really, really interesting. There were a bunch of things in there that I did not know. So, yeah, great job as usual. And I think that might just about... Yeah, really looking forward to more of these episodes. And yeah, I quite appreciate, including police. Although I suppose, given that, the identity of the protagonist of the show, I suppose they are technically mall cops.